I'm back. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Comic Hall, double sized for your pleasure. I am your host, Dylan Lang. I was on vacation all last week, so you missed my pretty face, I'm sure. I also do another show called Dylan Knows, and I did 2 episodes of that a couple weeks ago, so I've been caught up. But I got a new episode coming out on Friday, the return of my co-host Jerry Fletcher, so that's pretty cool. And we'll be doing a list show, the top 10 films of 1992. Plus, I may slide in another solo episode of Dylan Knows, talk about my vacation. But for now, we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about comics, and we got 2 weeks worth of comics we're going to go over with. Now, I've done a couple of these this year. So those might not know, since I am doing 2 weeks worth, what I'll do is I'll do the ones that came out today, this week on Wednesday, and then I will go back and show you the stuff that came out last week. In a lot of comic book stores, books that came out last week stay up on their shelves. Most stores would have a new this week section, and then a section of a few months worth, including the ones from last week, put up on the shelf. So if you missed it, you can come in and pick up any extra copies before they decide to shift it to the back issue bins. Gives them a little bit extra time to sell some more copies at regular price and get the fan base to come in and pick up what they need. So without further ado, we got 2 weeks worth of comics to deal with, and there's a lot of them. So I will show you the pile separately for each week. The ones I'm about ready to do right now are books that you can go out and buy starting today, brand new. Go to the brand new this week shelves. These books will be there. Again, I do not buy every comic book that's out there. If I did, I would be insane, but I would also be filthy rich. So maybe if I win Powerball, maybe that'll be something that I will end up doing. But for now, I'm only buying a certain amount of them. And this week, was a pretty hefty size week for me. So here we go. This week, books this week you can get this week. The start of DC's big event, which actually, I looked at the schedule, goes until Valentine's Day of next year. So you got a long haul on this one. But this is Dark Knight Metal. Number 1 is finally out here. There were 2 prequels, I guess, The Forge, and there was another one, I can't remember what it is. I read both of them on vacation, so I'm caught up on this. But this is issue number 1 of the series. It's written by Scott Snyder with art by Greg Capullo. So the 2 of them are joined back together again after their long run on Batman when the New 52 started. So they're back again and looking good as always. It looks like it's ostensibly it's a Batman story, but the Justice League plays a big role in it, as does a bunch of other characters as well. Hawkman, the Challenge of the Unknown, Starman, the Black Hawks, Red Tornado. So all kinds of really cool stuff. And Batman tackling dinosaurs. And I'm not going to spoil a surprise, but there is a surprise ending. I'm only going to show you the page before it. So there's a surprise ending. The last page of this is fairly stunning. If you haven't read the spoilers yet, I highly recommend you wait till you read the book to find it for sure, but looks good. I've had my issues with Scott Snyder before, but hopefully this story will be different. And as I said, this goes until Valentine's Day of next year. So all during the fall and most of the winter, and there's going to be a whole bunch of crossovers and extra series as well. So, sorry, there's a fur and stuff I want to move right there. So that's it. Next up is Superman number 29. I got caught up on Superman on my vacation also. I love this cover. It looks like it's Ethan Van Sciver, but I could be wrong. But it's a great cover. It's Yellow Lantern Superman. I guess Peter Tomasi's taking a breather because Keith Champagne is the writer, and Doug Mahnke and Jamie Mendoza, along with Scott Hanna and Rob Hunter, are the art team. So Doug Mahnke has been working with Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, but I think they're taking a little breather as they're getting ready to prep for their new storyline. Hopefully that they haven't been off the book. I haven't heard anything, but this looks like it's a multiple part story, so we'll see. Maybe they're just taking, as I said, a little breather, and they'll be back. Superman and the Yellow Lantern. So hopefully it'll be as good as the Tomasi series has been, so we'll see. Speaking of Batman, Batman number 29, Continuing the War of Jokes and Riddles, is out this week as well. Story by Tom King with art by Mikel Janin. This issue, Bruce Wayne sits down with the Joker and Riddler and their henchmen and have a dinner to discuss ending the war. And that's really basically what the whole issue is. So Tom King is again doing something different with his Batman comics, his storyline, and it looks good. And Mikel Janin's artwork is phenomenal in that as well. So Batman 29 is out this week as well. Peter Tomasi, if you miss your Peter Tomasi, well, you can pick up Super Sons number 7. Another great cover. Peter Tomasi writes, Jorge Jimenez art, continues the Superboy and Robin teaming up with the Teen Titans. So pretty cool. So good artwork. I also got caught up on this one too. So really looking forward to this, and should be a lot of fun. Next up is Batwoman number 6. Got caught up on this also. Marguerite Bennett and James Tynion IV are writing it. The art is by Renato Arlem, giving Steve Epting a chance to get ahead a little bit with the next story arc. So we get a kind of a, I think it looks like a future story to me, of Batwoman, because she's looking a little older than normal. And it apparently, the ending crosses over with the storyline that is going to be going through Detective Comics in November, it looks like. This is a good place to start with that one. So there's Wonder Woman number 28, continuing the story arc after Greg Rucka. It's written by, see if I can find it. There's just some of the artwork. I think it's at the end here. Yeah, it's Shea Fontana, writer, Dave Messina, artist. So after Greg Rucka left, I don't know how much Wonder Woman I'm as excited for. I mean, it's interesting the fact that Wonder Woman movie made so much money, and now they've got this team, but it could be a good story. I haven't read it yet. I haven't gotten caught up on Wonder Woman yet. Another one I got caught up on is Green Lanterns. This has been, as always, excellent. Green Lanterns number 29 is out this week also. Sam Humphries is the writer, and the artist is Eduardo Pansica with inks by Julio Ferreira, continuing the adventure of the Green Lanterns trapped in time as they deal with the first 7 Lanterns, train them to take on Val Thuum, the main bad guy. So this is basically the training day issue, and it's very exciting. The artwork is fantastic, and the storyline has been very, very good. So very excited for that. Next up, we have Aquaman number 27. The main reason I picked up Aquaman starting issue 25 is Stefan Sejic artwork. Great cover by Stefan Sejic. Dan Abnett still writes it. Stefan Sejic is still the artist on it, so I'll see how long I last with that. But Stefan Sejic is a really good artist and draws his women very good, and the artwork is great, and so we'll see what happens. Continuing the Jack Kirby one-shots, we have Sandman Oversized Special. A couple different stories. One's written by Dan Jurgens with art by John Bogdanovich, which is a name I haven't heard in a long time, looking very Kirby-esque. John Bogdanovich was an artist on Superman back in the 90s. He worked with Dan Jurgens. And then we also have a story written by Steve Orlando with art by Rick Lenarde and inks by Dan Green. I love Rick Lenarde's artwork. Again, it's a little bit different than his usual style, trying for the Kirby look, but fixing it up a little bit different. And Kirby himself makes an appearance in the book. So, real quick, I'm going to mute myself for 1 second. I'll be right back, I promise. All right, sorry about that. I had to talk to my wife real quick. But keep coming. Listen, that was just a little issue. I'm going to continue on. Astro City number 46 is out this week. Kurt Busiek, Brent Anderson, Alex Ross. I got word today that, or this week, that Kurt Busiek is going back to the well Superman Secret Identity is one of the best stories I've ever read that he wrote. He's doing the same thing with Batman and the series coming out in November, so I'm extraordinarily excited for that. But meanwhile, I've talked a million times about Astro City. If you ever go to your comic book store, these are trades you need to pick up, as the Astro City ones, and the comics as well. Next up, we have Cave Carson has a Cybernetic Guy number 11. I just thought this cover was kind of cool. It's written by John Rivera and Gerard Way, with art by Michael Avon Oeming, which is really the only reason why I'm still reading it, but it seems fairly interesting. I can't show you some of these other pictures because it is a little bit of nudity and it's a little bit of weird stuff going on here, but it's Cave Carson, it's Wild Dog, and it's crazy weird stuff, and you gotta love it. Also from DC, we have Future Quest presents Space Ghost number 1. Space Ghost had a miniseries back in the early 2000s, which was drawn by Ariel Olivetti. Well, guess what? He's back. This time Jeff Parker is writing the story. So it's a Space Ghost comic. The Herculoids make an appearance near the end, so but still really nice artwork, and it's a number 1, so may as well. And if you like Space Ghost, you may as well get caught up with that. That's it for DC this week. Marvel, I don't know why I keep buying these, but just to keep in the know, I guess. Generations Wolverine, number 1, where you get the female Wolverine with the male Wolverine, written by Tom Taylor with art by Ramon Rosavanos. Artwork looked pretty good, and I'm just keeping an eye on the Generation stuff. I'm intrigued by what they're going to be doing with Generations, but to me, I don't think there's really much they can do to get me back full time as a Marvel. But I figured I'd pick some of these up and just read them and see what they got going on. Silver Surfer number 13 has been phenomenal. Dan Slott loves Doctor Who, and this is his Doctor Who comic, Silver Surfer. I think this is the last issue of. Actually, no, it isn't. It continues. But it's a Mike Allred, and is the artist, and basically it's, as I said, Dan Slott's version of Doctor Who with spaceman with a female companion doing wacky, crazy adventures, and the art by Mike Allred is just making it be phenomenal. So continued great series on that one. Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows number 10, continuing the comic story of the alternate universe where Spider-Man and Mary Jane get married, have a kid, and everybody has powers. This one's written by Ryan Stegman with art by Nathan Stockman. And apparently in this world, Norman Osborn is like a 10-year-old boy, and that's kind of interesting. But, you know, Spider-Man, Mary Jane, and their daughter all work together fighting bad guys. So it's a good series so far. Jerry Conway is either done writing it or he's taking a break. Finally, Astonishing X-Men number 2. I mostly bought because of the Jim Chung artwork, but Jim Chung isn't doing the artwork on this one. Mike Deodato is. I like Mike Deodato, and it's written by Charles Soule, so I don't know how much longer I'm going to be sticking with this one, but hopefully Jim Chung will be back down the line, and Mike Deodato is not the regular artist on this, so we'll see. And Astonishing X-Men, it's an interesting team dynamic, so we'll see what happens. I'll pick up maybe one more issue like I did with Weapon X and then decide what I want to do after that. That's it for Marvel. Finally, Independence, one of the best independent comics I've read in a long time, has a second issue out, and it's a personal connection to it. Tom Zoller's Time and Vine number 2. The premise behind it is the wine bottle, the wine from this winery, whatever year it was grown or bottled up, you drink it, you travel back in time from it. It's a really interesting book. Tom Zoller, when I was a Diamond Comics, working at Diamond Comics, he was one of my accounts, so I got him into Diamond Comics, which is good. So it's good to see him successful. But the first issue was amazing, and it's double size, so I'm okay with paying extra money if it's going to be different sizes. But it is definitely, you know, a time travel story with a twist, and a little bit of wine in there as well. So interesting stuff. So brand manager was what I was for Diamond. He was the account. I got him into Diamond and was his account rep for a while. Another great series is Motor Girl number 8, Terry Moore, continuing this great storyline. Beautiful black and white artwork, an intriguing story about an Iraqi war vet who is seeing visions of a giant gorilla, but also aliens are invading as well. So good book on that. Dynamite's been doing a bunch of these real quick. They did it with Red Sonja. They did it with Vampirella. And now they're doing it with Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. It's a 25-cent, 0-issue introductory issue, getting you prepped for what's going to happen. Marguerite Bennett and Christina Trujillo are the writers, and art is by Moore Tot, so it's a good story. And, you know, it's a good girl artwork with Sheena and leopard print, which is always sexy to me. Leopard print outfit. And it preps you for the upcoming regular series that's going to be written by the same creative team. So gorgeous J. Scott Campbell cover coming up on that one. So I picked up, it's 25 cents. What do you got to lose? Why not pick it up? I picked up for Red Sonja. I still collect Red Sonja, and I picked up for Vampirella, and I still collect Vampirella. The newest issue of Vampirella is out this week. Number 5, written by Paul Cornell, with art by Jimmy Broxton. What Paul Cornell did is, instead of making using the Vampirella, who has the very skimpy outfit, he's updated her to a more modern look and is telling a modern vampire story. Dark and disturbing as it is, violent, and not quite what you might be expecting from a Vampirella book, but it's just as good. So those are all the books that are out this week. So some good stuff. As I said, what do you got to lose for a 25-cent Sheena? And also Metal, you might want to get caught up with that because, as I said, it goes until Valentine's Day of next year, and that's when it's going to finish up. So that is stuff that you can get this week. Now, go to your comic book store, get that stuff you got for this week, and then also pick up the stuff that came out last week, like I did. I picked this up on Sunday, the day we got back. I picked this up. I went to the comic book store and picked up the stuff. Now, real quick, because it was Sunday, I missed getting a new issue of Supergirl and the new Doctor Who number 9th Doctor, newest issue of that. So hopefully I'll be able to get some of those down the line. And I almost didn't get this book. This is the book I've been looking forward to more than anything. I almost didn't get this book, but luckily my awesome comic book store, they had one put aside, not just for me, but they had a bunch put aside. I asked for it. They said, yeah, go ahead, you can have it. Mr. Miracle number 1. This book is the hottest book out there now. It's sold out. It took the comic stores by storm. They did not order enough, and it sold out very quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if a second printing is due out very shortly. I read this because this is the one book I've been waiting for a while. It is just as good as you heard. Tom King is probably is having quite a year, from Vision to Batman to Mr. Miracle. It starts off amazingly. Art by Mitch Gerards, pencils, inks, and colors, and is done in a very interesting style and has a very interesting story behind it, and you can pretty much predict where it might be going, or you think you might know where it's going, but you might get turned around. But this book is amazing, and I am so excited and so glad I got it. I highly recommend it for everybody. If your store is lucky enough to have an issue of this, pick it up in a second, because I guarantee you there will probably be a second printing being announced very soon. But definitely pick it up. It's a 12-issue miniseries celebrating the Jack Kirby years, but Mr. Miracle is one of the best characters out there. His wife is Big Barda, and Tom King is having quite a year for himself and is writing the hell out of the story. It's a great story. Mitch Gerard's artwork is very different and very cool, and I highly recommend it more than anything. I got caught up on this series during my vacation. Red Hood and the Outlaws number 13 is actually as good as people were saying it was, and I'd have to give Scott Lobdell a little bit of a I'm sorry, because I've never really liked Scott Lobdell's stories, but this one has actually been very good. He's writing this with art by Dexter Soy, and him and Dexter have pretty much been doing every issue. There were a couple here and there that Dexter didn't do, but Dexter's been doing a really good job of that. But it's the Dark Trinity with Red Hood, Artemis, and Bizarro, and it's such a great series, and it's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend this series as well. Get caught up with the trades, and then try to pick up as many issues as you can. The newest issue came out last week. And all these books came out last week, so check your last week's shelf. Most stores should have new this week and a last week shelf as well. Also last week was Harley Quinn number 25, double-sized, beginning of a new story arc. The main story is written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti with art by Chad Hardin. It is Harley Quinn's birthday, and they're having a birthday celebration for her. And it's been a very interesting series. And also, I don't know if he's doing it. He did do a backup. Also, Jimmy Palmiotti and Paul Dini, along with Brett Blevins and Jay Bone, are doing a series called Harley Loves Joker, which looks a lot like the animated series version of the characters, but with the sort of the comic book mentality. That has been introduced. That will be becoming a regular book in the future. Coming soon, you have to be concluded in Harley Joker number 1. So you'll be getting a new Harley Quinn book out like that. So written by Paul Dini, which I might have to buy because Paul Dini created Harley Quinn, and him and Jimmy Palmiotti have been doing a really good job on these stories. So pick up Harley Quinn number 25 to begin a new story arc. I keep saying I'm going to drop this book, but then stuff keeps bringing back in. This is Justice League of America number 12. Ivan Reyes, who hasn't drawn issues since issue 1, is now back on our chores with Steve Orlando doing the writing. That's one of the reasons why I wanted this series, because of Ivan Reyes, but he only drew the first issue and then disappeared till this issue. It's the adventures in the Atomverse, and it should be a very interesting storyline for that. So I might keep this up for a little while longer. We'll see how it goes. Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps number 26 starts a new storyline called Fall of the Gods. Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps is going to get involved in Metal, which is a series I talked about just not too long ago. This is the beginning of that. It's written by Robert Venditti with art by Rafa Sandova and Jordi Tarragona. So new story arc with the new gods, we'll see how that. I was trying to catch up on this one, but I haven't. So hopefully I'll get caught up on it soon. But definitely the beginning of a new story arc. You might want to check it out. Again, another book I was going to cancel, but another one pulls me in. Superwoman number 13. I bought it mostly for Phil Jimenez, but Kevin Perkins is doing the script, pencils by Steven Segovia and inks by Art Thibault. I love Art Thibault. Steven Segovia has got good artwork, and we'll see what happens. It's an interesting character, but this is the return to Smallville, and you get a little bit of a history lesson about the Lana Lang of the New 52 and her relationship with Clark in this series. So we'll see what happens if I keep up with it after this, but that was pretty good. Titans number 14, excuse me. Dan Abnett and Brett Booth continuing the storyline about the Traitor in the Mists. Norm Ratmud is the inker as well. Artwork is nice as always. So we'll see what happens with this. This is supposed to be a really important book in the new DC universe, so we'll see what happens. And but some of the story lines are getting kind of annoying, so we'll see what happens. Flash number 28. It's the Flash, even though I probably should stop buying because I haven't gotten caught up on it yet, but I figure I may as well keep going with it. Joshua Williamson is the writer. Carmine Di Giamenico is the art, and it's a new version of the Flash. He's got new powers, and something's not quite right with him. So keep going with that, and we'll see where that goes. So also, Detective Comics number 962 ends the story arc with Azrael. And we return of Bad Azrael, art by written by James Senior IV, with art by Alvaro Martinez and inks by Ralph Hernandez. So we get pretty good artwork. Batman family. He's bringing on people to help him out, and they have to take on Azrael, Bad Azrael. We haven't seen in a long time. There's going to be a storyline starting soon after this about the return of Red Robin. That's going to connect to the secrets going on in the DC universe right now. So we'll see what happens with that. So Detective Comics. I was going to drop this again, Action Comics 985, but then they just announced that there's going to be a major storyline in this book that's going to continue into the mystery of the new DC Rebirth. So I'll have to keep going with it. Rob Williams writer, guest writer, Guillaume March artist. So it looks like the Superman team itself, both on Action and Superman, are taking breaks because Dan Jurgens and Patrick Zurcher are usually the creative team on this. But they are not, and it looks like the beginning of another story arc. So it looks like they're going to take a breather between Superman story arcs, and then both creative teams will come back with new big adventure story arcs that will draw you into it. So I showed you the Sandman special, which is the Jack Kirby special from this week. Last week's Jack Kirby special is the Newsboy Legion Boy Commando special. Now, the problem with this is it's written and drawn by Howard Chaykin. Howard Chaykin is recently persona non grata in the comic world right now due to stuff, but it's a tribute to Jack Kirby. And despite what you may think about the Howard Chaykin as a person, he does tell entertaining stories with good art. He sometimes pushes the button, but when he's under the constraints of a DC world, he tells a good storyline. So we'll see what happens. So I'm just getting these Jack Kirby specials because it's Jack Kirby's 100th birthday, and it's, Jack Kirby's like King Kirby of comics. Scooby Apocalypse number 16, continuing the Scooby-Doo story set in the Apocalypse. I keep buying this because of Keith Giffen and James DeMatteis, the creative team, Ron Wagner and Andy Davis, artists. They combine with other really good artists from the past that I really enjoy. So one of these days I will be reading this, and I probably will love it as much as I did the Flintstones. Speed Wish, The Jetsons number 1, written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connors, coming out in November. Found that out also, so that's pretty cool. That's it for DC. Marvel, again, as I said, the Generations books, I keep getting them. This one's the Jean Grey one. Cullen Bunn, R.B. Silva, Adriana Di Benedetto, that's the art team. So there's the Jean Grey from the past, who's now in the present. And then this is the Phoenix during the Phoenix Saga storyline. The stories are interesting. And so, what have you got to lose? You have the money, may as well go for it. So we'll see what happens. There's a Captain Marvel one coming up soon, which I'm probably going to buy too. So we'll see. Amazing Spider-Man number 31, continuing Spider-Man's crossover with the crappy Secret Empire. Dan Slott continues to write Spider-Man, as he has been for years now. Stuart Emmerman and Wade Van Graw Badger are the new art team, and the art team looks good. Spider-Man, as I've told you before, if you've watched the show or know me, is the first comic I ever got, is my hero for the most part, even though I haven't been a big follower of his stuff in a while. But I still like to get caught up in it. So good on that. So these are all books that came out last week. Hulk number 9. This one I'm probably going to be giving up really soon as well. Also, Mariko Tamaki, Julian Lopez, and Francesco Gaston art team. It's an interesting book, but again, I need to start cutting somewhere. I haven't read any of the issues yet. I know it has Jennifer Walters as the main character in it, and I've always liked her, so one day. Same with this one, Rocket number 4. I'm buying it just because I've always liked Rocket Raccoon, but now he's teaming up with Deadpool. Al Ewing, writer. Art team is Adam Gorham. Again, this is probably one I'll probably be dropping soon as well, but it's Rocket Raccoon. I've always liked Rocket Raccoon, so I'll probably just keep buying it for a while. We'll see. So for Marvel, for Independence, the Shadow number 1 is the updated version of the Shadow. I've always been interested in a updated version. DC did one way back in the 80s that Kyle Baker or Sienkiewicz did, which was really good. But this one's written by Cy Spurrier with art by Daniel and Dan Waters, with art by Daniel HDR. But it's the Shadow in modern day, not in the not in the 1930s and 40s. So to see a modern day Shadow is interesting, and I'd like to see where it's going to go. So we'll see. Redlands, #1. I don't know if I'm going to keep up with this, but everyone was talking about this book along with Mr. Miracle as being the hot books last week. So I figured I may as well pick up an issue, see what it's like. It looks like a horror book. Jordi Belair is the writer with art by Vanessa R. Del Rey. So it's kind of a horror-esque book. As I said, we'll see, but I probably won't be sticking around with it much longer. But Redlands, the critics are saying is one of the best books along with Mr. Miracle from last week. So check it out. So I did. Red Sonja, #7. As I said, the 25-cent Sheena and then Vampirella. I got back in Red Sonja because of that, and a good story by Amy Chu and great art by Carlos Gomez with Red Sonja at modern day times. Red Sonja riding on a motorcycle. You don't see that every day, or getting into bar fights. So good stuff. Centipede #2. I've been hearing good stuff about this. It's the second of the Atari books, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Max Bemis, writer, Eon Marin, art, and it's a post-apocalyptic world where giant centipede has taken over, and people have been saying it's a good story. So I figured I got the first issue. Let's keep going with the second issue, and we'll see how it goes from there. Manifest Destiny #30. Chris Dingus, Matthew Roberts, Tony Akins, and Owen Drury. Again, it's a alternate history. What if Lewis and Clark, when they were exploring the Midwest and out west, discovered supernatural beings, and that's what the story's about. And so it takes place in modern time, in those times, in the 1700s, 1800s, and is pretty fascinating. So Manifest Destiny is a good series. Keep reading it. Clue #3. Again, just an interesting story. Paul Allor, art by Nelson Daniel. The final issue will have different endings to the crime, so you got to read up on the crime, and then you'll be able to figure out who the killers are. So Clue, it's like the game, it's like the movie, so why not? Back to the Future #22, continuing the Back to the Future storyline. This one is story by John Barber and Bob Gale. Bob Gale is the creator of Back to the Future and wrote the 3 movies, so now he's writing a comic. Script by John Barber, art by Marcello Ferreira and Athelia Fabio. So they're starting to, it was originally a FAQ where frequently asked questions, they would do storylines, but now they're starting to do more in-depth storylines, more traveling back in time and stuff like that. So Back to the Future continues to be pretty good. And finally, another book I'll probably be dropping really soon is Rose #5, Meredith Finch and Aid Guerrara, a fantasy book with a female lead. Not much more you need to know about that. So we'll see. And that is it for last week's stuff. So all that stuff came out last week, and I showed you stuff that came out this week. So we're all caught up. Next week, we will get back to a normal episode with just one. Actually, I can probably combine them into one book now, one bag now. Normal stories and stuff like that. Our normal show. So with that, it's time for me to head out. Thanks for watching, and enjoy. Go to the comic book store. Can't find a comic book store, go to your search engine, type in Comic Shop Locator Service. That's what I did down in North Carolina. I found a comic book store. It was okay, it wasn't great, but I used it and I found it, so it's very helpful. So check it out, enjoy, and I will see you next week in the Comic Hall and on Friday with a new episode of Dylan Knows, co-starring Jerry Fletcher, as we do the top 10 movies of 1992. Bye now.